Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Harry and Jen Do Horror with Friends. This month, we have a delightful conversation on Late Night with the Devil with the hilarious Ten Van Winkle. Before we get into it, a bit of context. Late Night with the Devil was a 2023 found footage / mockumentary horror film directed by Cameron and Colin Carnes. Upon its release, it made a splash in the indie film world and had the best opening weekend of any IFC film release to date. It enjoys a lofty 97 on Rotten Tomatoes. Something we get into in this conversation but fail to contextualize is that soon after its release, the film became slightly mired in controversy for its use of AI-generated images, which are used to segue in and out of segments at times. We get into that topic, but thought it would be good to lay it out for people ahead of time here. As always, everybody, if you have a moment and like this stuff, please give us a quick rating or review on your pod streamer, or better yet, share an episode with a friend. You can find our socials linked below in the show notes, as well as our email in case you have a film that you would like us to discuss. Next month, we will review Immaculate with Sydney Sweeney, so get ready for that ride. But first, let's get into it with 10 about Late Night with the Devil.
I think there are a lot of small things that are really yummy, but I feel like I'm eating an entire plate of like peeps. Like, I don't think delicious, and I feel disgust. This is not a meal. Right. And somebody's like, but it's 4,000 calories. I'm like, yeah, I get it, but I don't want to eat this.
That's the cold open. Teacher, and let's see, what's something from my life that I'm feeling today? I am so tired of the school year. Like, so tired of the school year. Like, if y'all think that, like, kids get senioritis or whatever, like, teachers get it so much worse than kids ever can understand. And then you have to pretend to be sympathetic to, like, oh, poor, you have senioritis. That's tough. I know. That's hard.
And you're like, get the fuck out of here.
Exactly. I had a kid try to tell me that he had junioritis today. And I was like, fuck off. You fuck right off. Do your damn work.
Oh my God. I'm Jen Lightfoot, and I'm an artist and tattoo artist, and I am drinking this amazing Tom Collins cocktail that our guest Ten brought.
It's so refreshing.
It's so good. It's great. I don't think we've ever all drank the same exact thing.
It's so fun.
Yeah, this is like the first time.
Exciting.
It is exciting.
I'm Ten Van Winkle, and I am an artist and an art instructor and a library staff worker. And we just got rid of. I work at a university, and so we just got rid of all of our students.
Yes. How's that?
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
You can breathe.
We have 1 week of closing early, and getting like an extra hour of stuff in the afternoon, which is amazing. And it gave me time to make this Tom Collins, which I made because I thought, like, what would they make? How would they be drinking? What would they be doing in the 70s? Which is, I feel like, a question that maybe the creators of this movie just didn't ask.
All right,
fair.
Critique is starting early.
We've begun. 10, presumably you're Jen's friend?
Yeah.
How did you get here?
Last time it was Tegan's friend. Right. No, 10 and I met, I don't know how many years ago, but through something called the Illustrators Guild of Ithaca.
It's like at least 8 years
That's
ago.
what I
not
thought.
like 9.
Yeah. It was like pretty close to when I moved to Ithaca.
Yeah.
And I met 10 that way.
And
nice.
I thought she was so scary.
Didn't you think I was going to be pretentious?
Yeah, I thought she was going to be pretentious and mean. And now I'm like, Jen's a little freak.
I'm just awkward and weird. Quiet.
Hey.
Yay.
That's super fun. So we are here talking about Late Night with the devil. I'm doing devil horns. You can't see this.
I thought you were doing the theremin.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, 10. Can you summarize this film for us? Would you be open to that?
I think so. So, Late Night with the Devil is about Jack Delroy, who is a TV host in the 70s, and he's trying to basically secure his future as a all-star TV host. The point that they use is Johnny Carson. He's trying to compete with Carson. And he has been sliding in the ratings after his wife dies about a year prior to the movie. So he pulls together this Halloween show that has all the stats. And he obviously plans, he's always courting controversy, and he plans to make this a very controversial, very exciting show with these wild guests. But as it so often does, things start to get a little bit too real and a little bit wrong. Do we do spoilers in this summary?
Yeah.
Okay.
Spoilers. Yep.
So one of the guests that he brings on is a psychologist that he has some sort of tristy romance situation with, and her young ward, who is a girl rescued from a satanic cult. And this girl is naturally possessed by something, and the something takes apart the show. And at the end, it basically comes about that Jack made a deal that took his wife away, and now he's paying his dues on it. And so it destroys him in the show.
Yeah.
That's a great summary of it.
That was great. Yeah. That
Nailed
was
it.
Nailed it. Yeah. What are some ideas, themes, perspectives, topics that you feel like this movie kind of approaches on a deeper level?
I mean, all right. So this time I took notes. Actual legit notes.
Jen took notes.
Jen took notes.
With
Jen took notes.
bullet points. What?
Whoa, bullet points.
Yeah.
Sorry.
The theme that I picked was guilt. So basically the guilt of him feeling like he killed his wife for fame. And I think that Madeline is kind of like a very important part of the movie, and that she's there in the studio to let him know that she knows what he did. So every time something bad happens, Madeline is a part of it. So the things that happen are the Christou scene. So after Jack admits who Minnie is, Christou vomits. Lily says in Madeline's voice, or I didn't really hear it as Madeline's voice, but Jack says it's Madeline's voice. Quote, "How could you let it happen, Jack? How could you let it happen?" And then she levitates. And then when Lily's head splits open, it's almost immediately after Jack sees Minnie's ghost in the video. I think he mentally snaps after seeing Minnie in the video. Or Lily, okay, so when he's being pulled out of the room after her head splits open, he looks back at Lily and they have like a moment and she like cocks her head. And I think that like it could also be that she manipulates or like puts the dream sequence in his head. Because for me, the dream sequence is not on air. It's only in his head. And when the dream sequence first happens, it goes from, oh my God, I meant to look this up. Whenever, like the screen is a square the whole time.
Yeah.
And then when it goes into the dream sequence, the ratio goes to full screen. So I think that when it's full screen, it's 100% in his head. So in the dream sequence, the TV executive gives him a chalice thing. The cult members then guide him into a room with the Abraxas leader, audience members, and TV executive. And he's told to drink up from the chalice. The minute he drinks up, a door immediately opens to a room. So it's him, selling his soul to the devil by drinking up the chalice. And then the hospital room appears. And the hospital room has like a TV set behind it. So it's almost like, and it goes back to square.
Oh, yeah.
So I don't think that it's on air for people to see, but I think it's how Jack feels. So I think it's how he feels that like the public views him like as if he killed his wife. Like he thinks that it's so like out there. I don't know, like exposed in a way. And like the dagger is like a metaphorical dagger. Like he didn't actually like stab her, but he feels like he killed her. So yeah, I feel like the whole movie is just about his impending guilt and Madeline just being like, I know you did this thing.
Yeah.
Like haunting him.
Yeah, can I ask you a follow-up question?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things that I read about this movie, this was on Reddit, so like take it for what it's worth. But like I had read some people trying to say that it is it's actually like a ghost revenge film and not like a satanic demon movie. Like, do you feel like that's in key? Like, do you feel like we should go that far to say that like Madeline is enacting revenge?
I don't think she's enacting revenge.
Oh, see, that's how I read. So I purposefully avoided any online anything about this.
And I can't help
but
myself.
that's how I read
So
it.
you read it as like revenge?
Yeah, I read it as Lily is possessed by Minnie, either as a separate entity or as a servant of Abraxas. But so let's say that she's not. Let's say that she's a ghost. In that case, for you, who is possessing Lily / does it matter?
I think it would be the entity that took her soul.
Took Lily's soul or
No,
took
that
Minnie's
took
soul?
Minnie's soul.
Okay.
So I think it's because at one point Lily turns like, I met you in the tall, tall trees to him. So I feel like it's like the same or like demon or group of demons, like one of them. I don't really think it's Abraxas because what's her name?
June.
Yeah, June. I love how you knew who I was thinking. It says like
It's in the notes.
it could be like a smaller
Like a servant.
deity.
Yeah, like a lesser servant of Abraxas.
Yeah, but it is muddled.
Yeah.
But I kind of like that.
Wait, so
Yeah.
what was your reading when you watched it? The first time or 2 times or before you got on Reddit?
Yeah.
I was thoroughly confused. But, I was confused. So my gut, I thought that there was both a demonic possession and a ghost involved. I think I've come to feel that it's actually just demonic possession and the specter of the ghost. So the reason the demon is there is to toy with Jack. I think all of those projections of its wife are just like there to fuck with him, basically.
Do you think like the demon's like fucking with him?
I do, yeah.
Okay, that's interesting.
And I think that it's actually in control of the whole shenanigans.
Yeah.
Even when it is apparently, and I'm air quoting here, like sort of in hibernation within Lily. I don't think it actually ever is in hibernation.
Well, they
within
have
Lily.
that shot in the when they're introducing Lily and June. They have the shot of Diabo and all of their stuff going on, and he specifically says he's like putting the knife through his hand, and he's like, "Whoever observes these rituals will fall under Abraxas' spell."
Right,
Yes.
right.
And then like we come back with Haig later to like, "I tricked you the whole time, television viewer."
Right.
So I think that tracks. And essentially, this is a good point because I was trying to do timelines because I was like, it's Minnie. It's definitely Minnie. But so Minnie dies in October 76 and Lily is rescued from the cult, from Diablo's cult in 74.
Right.
And then she has the first contact session in 76. So yeah, so it would
That's
have to be
interesting.
another
Right.
demon unless there's multiples.
Yeah,
Or
it could
she's
be like
been-
just a big old supernatural free-for-all on
Yeah.
this.
That's true. Or she's been possessed by different ones.
Yeah.
She's just like a conduit that
Yeah.
whoever's available kind of.
She
Right.
definitely seems possessed when she's not quote unquote possessed.
to be
Yeah. Yeah, she's so creepy. I think that it's pretty. I feel like there's a moment when they first bring her on stage, and Jack is like getting his makeup on, and like he's like, "This is what they do to make us look pretty," and she like turns around and is just like, "Don't I look pretty, Jack?" Right, like in his wife's voice. But this is before the demon has been awakened, so like, I don't know. Like I think that that's pretty clear evidence that it's just kind of playing.
Oh,
Like,
that's
it's chill for a moment, you know what I mean?
Yeah, but it's still there.
We can
It's
chill for a
just-
second.
It's just hanging out.
Right. Yeah, I think that's awesome. I love the idea of the wife and the image of the wife being this like this weight on Jack as like sort of like his guilt, and it's kind of following him through the movie.
Ten, what did you see in it?
I had a hard time I guess so. The big theme that kind of like hits you over the face is like the monkey paw. Like you make your deals and you pay the price,
right,
down the line. And I had a hard time sort of getting through the aesthetic to enjoy and kind of soak in a philosophical or like a moral theme. Particularly when it seems kind of muddy. There's obviously like the satanic panic stuff that they're trying to kick up, but it's a little early for satanic panic stuff.
Right.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it seemed to me that the themes were less narratological and more visual and more cinematic, and more sort of like tying itself in with other movies and other media.
Sure. Can you say more about that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So almost everything in the film that I was able to see was like a pretty direct reference to something else.
Yeah.
So like they pull obviously Amityville and The Warrens and Exorcist.
Right.
They're pulling Manson. They're referencing Waco with the Diabo cult. The other stuff, what are they doing? They're doing James Randi's award for the proof of super. Are you guys aware of James Randi?
No.
I think so, but please, yeah.
So he's a modern figure that started doing skeptic debunking in the 70s. He started basically doing a campaign against Uri Geller, who was somebody out of the Stanford Research Institute that June references. And he basically was like, I'm a psychokinetic and I can bend spoons. And so James Randi James Randi comes in and he says that's fake bullshit, and I can tell you why, because I'm a magician. And he offers this reward, and the reward is still standing. It's $1 million.
Oh my God, that is the character.
Yes, who can provide irrefutable proof of the supernatural. So that's very direct in there. They're obviously doing Reagan. The whole conceit is Ghost Watch. We have Michelle Remembers before Michelle Remembers with Conversations with the Devil. And there's like a bunch of little stuff here and there.
There's a Jurassic Park
visually,
one too.
There's a Jurassic Park. Yeah, so it all seemed very like referential in a way that for me, and we can talk about this later, and for me it ended up being distracting and sort of seemed like they leaned more on that than on like the emotional and spiritual core of the film.
Interesting. Yeah. Like for me, I'm like I want to find meaning in that, you know what I mean? But like, or is there just kind of like, is it just like the sad state of where we are?
Like fan service kind of, as opposed to
but just like everything has to be kind of like a chopped up blender of previous media, you know?
Yeah, I think you kind of see, if you look at something like Hereditary, I feel like it accomplishes the same thing of sort of like paying tribute to the things that made it while still coming across as a wholly original and wholly unique piece of art.
Right.
So like it's not an impossible bridge to gap. And I do think it's difficult when you're talking specifically about the television industry. And I think it's hard to make commentary on that. I have thoughts about how it might be improved, but we can save that for a later section.
Totally, yes.
Of the recording.
Yes, please. Cool. Well, thank you. You mentioned like the television industry, which for me was very much like, I guess that's kind of where I settled on a meaning for the movie.
I was like guessing what you were going to settle on, and I was like thinking it would be television or historical.
Really? Oh wow, that's awesome. Yeah, so like what I think is interesting about this movie is that it's so I've seen a lot of satanic devil possession shit, and we have talked about this on this podcast before about how we think it's really pretty tired, and I'll get to this more in my critique, but like what I think is original about what this movie did was it puts it in like a it takes devil possession and it brings it back to the like Dr. Faustus, like the like Faustian. It's like you make a pact with the devil and you seem to get what you want, but the devil always tricks you and makes it so that you're unable to enjoy the thing that you get, right? Like and it's a really old it's an old model for storytelling. It goes back like to the 1500s and they've been doing it ever since. Is it like, have you seen Bedazzled with Brendan Fraser and Elizabeth Hurley? No? Oh, man. It's a classic piece of 2000s media for you there. See Bedazzled.
2000s is almost cool right now.
That's right, I know. It's almost in, right? We're almost back to it. So Jack has made a pact with the devil in a Faustian way for television success, and this movie, I think, makes that pact about exploitation. He exploits his wife's health, his wife in general, for his ratings. And he does this not only like with his secret cult, but he also does it like very literally,
emotionally.
Right? Yeah, he like brings her on while she's dying of cancer. And from there I started looking at the exploiters, and I was like, there's so much exploitation in this movie. There's so many people like using innocent or otherwise powerless people for their own gain.
I do think it's interesting with this theme of exploitation that Haig, who you hate as a character, and you're meant to hate him, of course, is the only person in the film.
The soulless producer guy. Which
Haig
one's Haig
is the skeptic.
I thought his name was Carr.
It's
Carmichael Haig.
Oh, gotcha. Sorry, I did watch this movie, I promise.
Leo Fisk is our nasty little producer.
Right.
But Haig is the one that's there to say, like, enough.
Right.
Because it's his gig. This is his job.
Yeah.
Like, to break people, you have to assume he has a passion for truth and a passion for...
But even he exploits people in the movie, right? He like embarrasses the shit out of the like Andy Richter side host guy.
Oh, he does.
Right? Like he makes him like be all hypnotized and like embarrassed, and he even says like, I'm so embarrassed after that whole ordeal is over. Right?
Poor Gus.
Poor Gus. Yeah, I feel so bad for Gus.
I know, me too. He's like the only redeemable character.
Yeah.
So just to name a few other exploiters in this movie, or a couple other ways that we
just run down the list of
I'm
characters.
just going to bust them right out. You've got this Leo, the like soulless producer for whom everybody in the studio is expendable, right? Clearly. He's a total like stereotype, right?
Well, if you liked it, I'll take credit.
Yeah, absolutely. Jack is obviously exploiting his wife. He is fucking June to like manipulate her emotions and get her and Lily on the show. Lily, who he eventually even murders on camera, which is the Faustian trade-off for his fame, right? Because, like, you're famous now, right? Yeah. Like, you killed a child on live television. So we talked about Cal, who embarrasses Gus. Christu.
Oh, yeah.
He's a shyster, dude. I think that motherfucker was a full-on, like, fake.
Cold reading. Oh, of course, yeah.
He, like, had his girlfriend, like, snoop out.
Not even cold reading, like, hot reading ass. Yeah.
I love he's just like, I hear a P. Like, he just picks a random fucking letter in the alphabet.
Yep. June, which we talked about, she took like a vulnerable 13-year-old girl and like developed a relationship with her, but then like wrote a book that made some money, and it's like, that feels icky to me.
And is calling the child, I mean, it says, was it Conversations with the Devil?
Conversations with the Devil.
So it's like, Lily is not important. Like, you know?
Conversations with the Devil, right?
Yeah,
it's
not even Conversations with Lily.
It's not even even the name of the book that it's based on.
Michelle remembers.
Even that
centers Michelle.
Yeah,
that's interesting.
Yeah, that's interesting. And then I want to just throw one like curveball in there, one oddball.
I love a curveball.
We see a clip of a skit that he does where he's a caveman and she's like complaining about having to do all the dishes and all the laundry, and he's like, we've all heard this before, pointing to like
women
the
in
patriarchy's exploitation of women.
Oh my god.
It's like kind of It's funny and also sad.
I think this is an interesting thread too, because they have specifically, one of the things that frustrated me about the movie was how sort of like oppressively and aggressively and unexaminedly white it is. There are a couple of like characters of color in the background, but then we have Cleo James. So the whole movie, I'm like, when's Cleo James going to come out? Can we see they handle this? And he says specifically, we have to make room for Cleo. We keep punting her off the show.
Right.
And then, of course, at the end, he's like, all right, we're going to bump Cleo because we have to stay on this thing that we're doing. So it's just one more thread in the exploitation. Like, even though I know she wants to be included in this.
Yes.
So it just feels like this whole, what it gives is the impression that this whole crew, this whole show is like deeply enmeshed in this culture of exploitation, right? It illustrates the ugliness behind the scenes of the like glitzy TV show, I think also, the movie this is, by juxtaposing like, you know, the filmed show segments, which are in full color, and the dirty behind the scenes stuff, which is like gritty and black and white and looks like there's also steady camera for the film stuff, and it's very hand shaky for the behind the scenes stuff. So it's kind of like, you know, what you see versus what's actually there. And to me, it just made very poignant this line from the beginning when like it's clear that we're watching a documentary about this whole thing, right? And we have a narrator who says talking about the way that media changed in the 1970s. And he says, television documents the chaos and beams it into our living room. You know, like here he's directly referring to things like the Vietnam War and real ugliness there. And then he says, but it also offers comfort. And it sets up this dichotomy. And by comfort, he means shows like Night Owls, right? And it's setting up this dichotomy between chaos and comfort. But I think that this movie shows us that comfort is just like a really disguised more chaos, right? Like it's like it's kind of ironic. It's a false dichotomy.
Yeah. Like it's not actually comfort in a loving, kind way.
No. Well, it's comfort. It's just that it is not genuine.
Yeah.
It comes at the cost of unseen chaos. Yeah.
We could just hop into critique.
What I want to bring up is about the change in aspect ratio and the total change in tone from the show with the pillar of light coming out of Lily's head to the sort of surrealist backstory blah that happens after that. And whether we feel like, so this is critique. Let's get into it. Whether we feel like that is permissible. For most of this movie, we're supposed to be watching essentially a found footage, just like produced in a studio.
Which I did see some people were
what did they say?
by.
What did they say online about this? Because
that they were frustrated by like that it was supposed to be found footage, but like I guess like, you know, like the black and white scenes that are happening behind would not
has a
have been
handheld in the
filmed.
70s?
But for me, it didn't bother me because I was like, this doesn't feel like, I didn't see it as found footage. I feel like when that bothers me,
even though they explicitly said at the beginning, this is a found footage master copy of the show as it was originally recorded. Who is he talking to?
I think
like,
it's like a PBS.
It's like us. I think we are supposed to be us.
I figured it was like a
chilling on the
PBS,
couch,
like
watching.
You know.
So like, why not have a closing frame for this? I mean, I know Blair Witch didn't, but Blair Witch also only had like title frame. I guess I am still like, it's a found footage, and that is a found footage convention. So if it's not one, then you don't need it. I guess.
I actually didn't catch that he said found footage, and I watched it twice. I did not pick up on that.
I don't think he said found footage. I think he said like original footage. This is a master copy plus never before aired.
But
footage.
it's the classic, like, you know, 3 years later their footage was found. Scroll, right?
It didn't bother me because it was like professionally shot, and there would have been multiple cameras in the room anyway.
But would they be moving like that?
Right.
They're like, whoa,
I don't think it would have been, but I feel like found footage only really bothers me when it's like one camera. Clearly people with one camera, and then you see a shot of them in the distance with the camera. Who's filming? But
well,
this
that's what I'm referring to here.
Yeah, but it didn't bother me.
I'm referring to I also disliked the the like color broadcast and then the black and white BTS
You
stuff.
did? It bothered you?
I
I
didn't
don't
like.
mind that.
I didn't mind it either.
Oh, so maybe what are we talking
Well, so
about?
I
Here?
don't
I'm
mind
confused.
I don't mind the color switch.
No, I don't mind the color
But-
switch because it's a color switch.
Yeah, it's cheaper.
Feels improbable to me that
Someone's following them around with a camera, like, what's Leo saying to
in the
Jeremy?
1970s. I think it was not as much of a cultural norm.
Well, yeah, and I do feel like in a post-The Office world, there's no reason to have these, like, cinematic shots of people backstage, and even sort of, like, the up-close and behind, like, The Office showed you how to do it. How to, like, show people in their natural environment, in their workplace, and how to show that you are a behind-the-scenes person catching something you're not supposed to see.
So you mean like you would have almost rathered if it was like, okay, we've gone to commercial break.
I would have
and
rather
they're
seen
on
him from like
stage.
50 feet away, but you can hear the mics
Yeah.
and be like, oh,
Same.
Leo. Yeah.
Same.
interesting.
I would have preferred it if those scenes were like black and
Yeah.
it was just mic feed.
Or you see
Like-
people like on stage, like adjusting chairs and
Yeah.
putting out props.
Yeah,
Because they're
I
not
just-
long.
Yeah, they're very short. And
No,
I
that's
just
true.
didn't believe that people in the 1970s would be having these sensitive conversations with a camera in their fucking face.
Can you imagine hearing the conversation he has with Gus and not seeing the visual of like Jack and Gus together when Gus is like, people are getting ready to leave.
Yeah.
And you're like seeing people dress the stage
Yeah.
or audience members freaking out or something.
It would have been really powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would have been really
I
powerful.
actually like that change. I agree with you guys, but it still didn't bother me.
Yeah.
I was chilling. I was having a good
that
time.
for me is
great.
like that for me is a minor thing. What I'm not sure I'm okay with is and I have an explanation that allows me to still enjoy the movie, but is this after Lily goes full demon, like pillar of light out of her head. She has that glance with Jack as he's being ushered backstage, and now we're switching from any semblance of like a live broadcast vibe to just this is full on cinema now, right? Like this is external cameras from an unknown observer.
No, it's Jack's mind. It's all in his head.
Why are
But
we
why would we see
Yeah.
that?
Although I guess that you could make an argument that like the hypnosis that's done that makes us see what happens with Gus in the first
I
iteration.
was trying to do
might
something
have-
with the hypnosis, but it didn't. Timing wise,
I
it doesn't work.
think that's my explanation too. If I want to enjoy this movie, so there's a bit where so she goes full demon, pillars of light, blah blah blah. She's got multiple pillars of light coming out of like each arm,
Yeah.
and one of them is pointed at a camera. So it's like she could be
Is
like.
it at the camera or is it at the TV? Because she has one going like this, and I think it's at the TV that they rewatch the footage on, and she has one going up here.
But that
and I
would
wanted to
also
know
make
where
sense.
did this one go?
Yeah,
But that would make sense too.
and we see the
because-
magic like traveling through wires and shit.
And
what
I
do you
did
think
think
we're
that
seeing?
like she could have put that
So, like,
scene
she
in
is-
his head.
Oh.
Like that was another thing that like because when she looks at him, she like cocks her head, and so part of me made me think that like she's like, I want you to see this, and like almost like I want you to like kill me in the end. Like it was like
yeah,
the
she
plan.
does because that's sealing the deal,
Yeah.
and that's why the demon takes on the form of Minnie is to get him to do the big
to
stab.
do the stabbing. But I don't think that
So if you want to say like demon hacks the feed, demon feeds a psychedelic experience into camera.
To cam. I mean,
We solved it.
That's what I'm
Already.
saying. Like,
done. Episode over.
so I think that it's either brilliant or it's inexcusably stupid, and I'm just not sure which one it is.
I think there are a lot of small things. I think the conceit is great. I
Yeah.
think there are a lot of small things that are really yummy. But I
Yeah.
feel like I'm eating an entire plate of like peeps. Like I don't think
Delicious.
delicious and I feel disgust. This is not a meal.
Right?
And somebody's like, but it's 4,000 calories. I'm like, yeah, I get it, but I don't want to eat
That's
this.
the cold open.
Oh my god.
Oh man.
Now I want to eat peeps.
Right. I don't
I
want a
know.
whole plate of
I
peeps
have
though.
some at home. That's probably why they're top of mind. But
Yeah. I had a couple other things I wanted to ask you about, just taste wise. Couple things more things that I disliked or wanted your opinion on. The devil possession stuff in the movie.
Ooh.
The
yeah.
like scene where she contacts the demon plus you know.
Do you mean like the part where she like levitates in the chair?
Yeah, where she levitates
like
in the chair and all that stuff.
Okay.
How do you feel about that?
Okay, so I don't really like. I like The Exorcist, but I don't really like possession movies because they all do the same goddamn thing, which is like, kid is possessed.
Yeah.
Bring in some religious person. Exorcise the demon. Blah, someone spins their head, and it's so fucking like predictable.
Yeah.
This I enjoyed because she's not exorcised. They don't want her to be exorcised. They want her to keep coming back on the show.
Right.
So, and the whole movie wasn't about an exorcism. It was a brief moment. So I enjoyed it. Mm-hmm. I felt like the audience member watching something exploitative, though.
Well, I mean, because that's what it is.
Yeah,
that's what it's supposed to be, I think.
enough.
Tim, what did you think of that stuff?
I think on a technical level, I love possession and exorcism movies. Mm-hmm. Probably because they do the same thing every time. So, like, it's interesting to see where the differences are. And so this was another... I feel like this movie, in a lot of times, it made a lot of references, and I think it made these references in pursuit of legitimizing itself in the world and casting, like, a veil of sort of, like, verisimilitude. But all it kind of did was say, okay, but you're doing the stuff that's already been done, but you're doing it weak. So she just looked like Reagan.
Yeah.
She just looked like Reagan.
Thank you.
I do think that
and then June says, what does she say? She says, Vade retro Satana.
Yeah.
Oh, that made me so mad.
I love that you wrote it down.
Satana. Satana. Who says this? So from a technical level, it kind of made me roll my eyes. And then on a thematic level, I fundamentally have an issue with stuff that taps satanic panic and is like, but it was real.
Right.
So like the Nightmare on Elm Street remake from 2010.
Yeah.
This, it really makes me crazy because they're like, whoa, this thing happened to the kids. And the kids are like, no, it didn't, which is the actual story. It is an interesting story to say, like, why does the community make this up? Why do they generate this fear? Because it was real.
Right.
And I don't like that. So they're obviously like leaning into satanic panic tropes, but it's pre-satanic panic.
Right.
So like, why are they setting... I did read the creator said that they set it in 77 because they wanted Halloween on a Monday night. And that made me mad because everything else about this movie should have been set in the 80s or 90s.
Yeah. So why the fuck did they want Halloween on a Monday night?
And also, why did
Week something?
Yeah, but why
a
did it
preposterous reason
have to be that realistic? Nothing else was realistic.
Nothing
so
else
why
was
did
that
it-
realistic.
No one was going to research this and be like, oh, Halloween
just to like
wasn't on a
heighten
Monday.
That's so stupid.
That's
oh
why,
my God.
and I feel like they picked like some interesting things to pin.
Yeah.
But they didn't make it cohesive. They didn't pull it all together.
Yeah.
Like I feel like if you did the 90s, then you would have an excuse for this behind the scenes stuff. And you
Totally.
would have more of an excuse. I did a lot of research on the, not a lot. I read the Wikipedia page and made notes. I did research on the Stanford Research Institute because she references their parapsychology unit. It was founded in like the 40s. Yeah. And in the 70s, they moved to parapsychology. And it was for remote viewing and psychokinesis. Strictly military applications. Yeah. It was not a paranormal research situation, but if you pushed it into the 80s or 90s, you could have kind of bullshit that it was.
Because it would have been a long enough time for it to like...
Yeah, you could have had the X-Files.
It.
You could have had like a poltergeist reference point. Yeah. I feel like there's a lot of interesting stuff that you could have done that could also kind of like glaze over it. I almost wish they hadn't sent it in real life at all. But made up their own Johnny Carson figure. Made up their own...
like as opposed to like saying Johnny Carson.
Stop referencing it directly.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and they even like... there were a couple other things that were not 70s. Where like they try to make his show into like Jerry Springer almost. Yeah. To like get ratings.
Yeah, you're right.
But there was nobody during that.
It's very combative at points that it does feel anachronistic. You're right about that. I thought about that too. Parts where like the guests are it's not that guests didn't bicker on late night shows from time to time, but like you're right. Like it feels Springery in a way.
What happened to you,
No, but
Jack?
they actually show.
You used to be a guy.
There's like a in the beginning when they're like showing the things that he did on television.
Yeah.
There's people fighting or he's wrestling the little like arm
like
thing.
That's right. Yeah.
So he literally tried to go Jerry Springer, but I don't think anyone was doing that kind of TV in the 70s.
Well, and then they also try to do when they're talking about Diablo's cult, they're like, oh, and the Grove also was dealing in weapons, and they're trying to do like a Waco Jonestown thing, which again 90s.
Yeah.
They're like really they're taking these cool, scary things and just like borrowing them from wherever they want.
Wherever they came from.
I mean, the cult stuff was big in the 70s.
Yeah.
And I felt like, when was Anton LaVey?
LaVey, I think, was 60s.
So that would make sense, because I thought the Abraxas leader, whatever his name was, they were trying to make him kind of be like Anton LaVey or look like him.
Yeah.
But
he also looks like a bunch of, again, the Satanic Panic police training videos. They would like hire those guys who were like, I used to be a satanic priest and now I work for the police, and I'll show you what all my tools are. So he had like that kind of vibe too. It was just like,
yeah. So for you feel like the choice to have it in the 70s is like it's very superficial. It feels like it would have been more appropriate, and perhaps maybe they even would have wanted it at some point in a different decade, even or it just would have made more sense,
But then you do lose the comfort versus chaos false dichotomy that I think is one of the interesting things about the movie that you pointed out.
Right. Yeah, for me, just to come back to where we started here, which was the sort of Reagan exorcist shit. I was like, I was offended.
Yeah.
I was like, this is the laziest. We've talked about how we feel like possession is tired already. It's like, it was the laziest possession shit that I've ever seen. And the only way I can get past it is to say that, as a flaw in the movie, is that it's not really the point of the movie.
What it's about.
Right?
The point,
It's like a 30-second part of the movie.
Because it's almost just like another bit on the show.
But there was no way to be just a little more creative with this?
I don't mind the Exorcist references, but feel like to bring up something that might just frustrate you guys more. I'm going to throw some fuel on the fire. Lily calls it Mr. Wriggles, and Reagan called it Captain Howdy.
Yeah.
Annoyed that.
I call him Wriggleson. I mean Wriggleson.
Right.
Wow. So spooky. Yeah, that also made me so mad.
What?
Dude, yeah.
I love how angry you are.
I was mad too. I was not
Oh my
happy.
God, what?
Mm-mm.
This is crazy
It
times.
just took me out. Every time they referenced or specific or alluded or analog something, it made me so mad. It took me out of the reality of the show.
It made me something that I said to Kat, my wife, as we're watching this, who I have subjected every film that we've ever done to, and I'm
Has
so
Kat
sorry.
been a guest?
She's the guest on our next one, actually.
Good.
So,
Okay. Good. Her doom.
Which is that this only people are while that's happening in the studio, people are oh, they're screaming in the audience, and I'm like, they would only be reacting this way if they had never seen The Exorcist. And so maybe that's a part of why we're here.
No, the timeline for The Exorcist was book in 71, movie in 73, and it was a phenomenon. Amityville Horror, book in 77, movie in 79.
Yeah.
So when Haig references it, it's pre-movie.
What? Okay.
Manson's in 69. James Randi starts his institute. He's not in this universe. He's replaced by Carmichael Haig.
Yeah.
And I think those were the major.
I love that you wrote down those times, because then the audience should have known those things.
They should know, and they should be bored as shit like me.
They're like, oh, scary girl.
Yeah.
Just to get us even more angry.
Oh gosh. What are you? You're just trolling today.
I am.
She's happy. Look, she loves it.
I want to talk about the fucking... Are they called the interstitial images? What are they called?
Interstitials, yeah.
Yeah. Oh.
The fucking AI images.
Can this be as
This can be its own section.
No,
All
it's
right.
okay. Actually,
We
Okay,
have
alright.
to do it.
Go ahead,
The
because I think it's part of
AI
my-
images, because I paused it on the images and I decided to look at what the fuck was happening. So while I look up this image, okay, here it is. Okay, so I know that I will post this on the Instagram so people can see
The
what the
Instagram.
fuck I'm talking
Oh,
about.
your Instagram. I thought you meant the Instagram.
No, the podcast Instagram.
The Facebook.
So, what is happening with this fucking skeleton hand?
Yeah.
Well, he's going like this.
It's his other hand has 4 fingers. The owl had 9 claws, which makes no sense.
Yeah.
All of it.
Don't you think it's actually kind of spooky?
Creepier.
And they were
A little
like,
creepier.
and like they were the dumbest fucking images that any artist could have done. So like in the beginning, there's pictures of Jack with like famous people. They didn't use it for that.
And they are bad to be.
Yeah. Shitty Photoshop.
Candid.
But like, it's just so frustrating.
It is weird. Yeah. It's weird that they chose to do it for that, which is so easily like hireable.
Yes.
And like,
Well, and I think that the interesting thing about the interstitials is that it's kind of a microcosm of the bigger problems in the movie, where it holds up in like a pursuit of verisimilitude again, but it only shows off how cheap and dull the product, this interstitial that you have, is compared to the core material that it's based off of.
Yeah.
So when you see it, you say, "Oh, 70s," and then when you look at it, you're like, who did this?
Right.
The image.
Who did this?
Because the images.
Well, it was hilarious because I heard a lot of complaints about the AI, but I didn't look up what it was before I went in. So I was like, what did they do? So when I was watching, I was like, oh, it must have been all the effects.
Yeah, I thought the door.
Right, same.
Like,
Which would make sense. It looks cool, and I'm sure that was hard. The interstitials? You could have made this in Canva.
It's weird.
Like,
Yeah.
You could have like gotten a stock image.
It's weird.
And done paint bucket.
So can I play devil's advocate for a second?
Yes.
See what I did there? So I I've listened to a couple of other podcasts about this issue, and something that I thought that was a valid point to bring up was that like this movie was made like 3 years ago, actually. Like I feel like our conversation about AI has changed actually a lot in a really small amount of time. I don't want to excuse it. Obviously, it's like unconscionable to like hire out what should pay human beings to especially like artists have robots to do that. But like, yeah, like to me, it was a little bit like, I can imagine a world where it was like, they're making the movie, they have this tool, they just like use it and they're like, look at this, look at how cool this is. They had their graphic designers tweak it anyway. But then
it's due tomorrow and they gotta get it
right,
in.
Or then they just like stick it in there, you know? And like, and also the fact that it's like an indie too. Like, I think if Marvel, had done this with like,
I was thinking
the
Yeah.
question of scale, I think, is important.
Yeah.
Because I feel like this movie, it's huge.
Yeah.
Like,
It took off.
It took off. And like, did the distributor, that's what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
Did the distributor know that it was going to take off? Or did they think this was going to be something that was going to be released VOD on Shudder?
Yeah, who
and
knows?
it was just going to be a silly little movie.
Right.
So I think there is like an argument to be made for like, you have to make allowances in certain spaces.
Yeah.
But once they knew, especially I think Shudder, which is supporting these small filmmakers and like trying to set them up for success and get their stuff out there, like somebody needs to go in and say, you need to edit that shit out.
Yeah,
Totally.
And it's actually super easy to edit out and just
100%.
be like,
Yeah.
it's not like you have to
But I can see why a
thing.
person would use it.
Right.
Like I could see why my stepdad running his small business, we're just going to make a graphic for whatever. I'm like, all right, pop it in.
Right.
And generate something. It's fine.
But you're right. There is something also in the fact that it is still there. It's still the thing that's widely distributed, despite all this controversy.
And it's going to
despite all this
damage.
discussion.
It's going to damage the viewing.
Yeah, I think so. Because I think a lot of people were like very angry about it too. So then it's going to change their views or make them not want to watch it. Or
Yeah. Which they couldn't have predicted 3 years ago.
No, because nobody was using like fucking Mid-Journey or
I mean,
whatever.
what has it been like six months probably since it became
I feel like
big.
since the writer's strike, like I feel like that's really when it got
Interesting.
big. You know what I mean? What was that? A year? Was that a year ago?
Was it a year ago?
So anyway, I guess my conclusion on that is that like I think they should hire artists to like just swap out that artwork. You know what I mean? And just make the movie clean and able, like viewable, guilt free. You know,
Guilt-free.
Guilt-free. I like that.
Despite for all of the other
Guilt-free,
problems of
even
the movie.
though the theme is guilt.
That's right.
Do you guys see the speaking of guilt-free? Do you see the land acknowledgement in the credits?
No.
So I thought that was really, really interesting, especially for a movie that knowingly and unfunnily deleted one of their black characters in the narrative. But they were like, this movie was recorded on the grounds of and I didn't write down who
Right.
some of the ground, but I was like, this is just fascinating. little paragraph to include in the scrawl.
Yeah, that is interesting.
I mean, do we want to take a second to talk about whiteness and race
We
in this
could.
movie? We've
Sure.
got time.
We got all night. Damn night. Go ahead.
At least a solid
I mean,
hour.
what? The only other person of color in the movie, correct me if I'm wrong, was Christou.
So we had Christou, we had Christou's partner, we had Phil,
Did we meet
the
Christou's
camera.
partner?
Yeah, she shows up. She didn't get a
very
name.
briefly.
Yeah, but she shows up when
Oh.
he's like leaking.
Oh, I didn't-
We have Sammy, the makeup artist.
oh yes. Yep.
We have Cleo,
Yeah.
and I think that's the
it's just-
collection. There may be some guys in the band.
No,
Oh, and then we
there's
have
the guy-
animal handler, Phil, the cameraman.
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and that's it. So, like, they're around, and I think there's a big argument to be made for. It was the 70s.
Well, did you guys watch it with subtitles?
Yeah.
No.
So I watched it with subtitles, and when Christou comes out, it says plays Indian music.
Indian music.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Which-
And then he's like a thick Spanish
Yes.
accent.
Yeah.
Which I think is part of the shyster.
Yeah.
And I think this movie said about like the cartoonization.
It
and,
felt like American ignorance too.
Yeah.
Totally.
But it's one of these funny things where like, I think that we're challenging this by representing it. And like, no, you're literally just representing it.
Because the movie doesn't say or do anything.
There's not
about
really
this.
a commentary on
No.
it.
Yeah.
I don't think it tries to say anything. I do. Oh my God. I only am saying this because this is what Tegan told me, and I don't know if it's true or not. And she also couldn't confirm if it was true or not. So I think the directors and writers are Australian.
Yes,
I don't
that's
know.
true.
They are.
Yep.
So I don't know if that changes anything with perceptions of race. I don't
No,
really
Australians
know
have
anything about
racism
Australia.
and
Yeah.
anti-Indigenous,
Okay.
and and I think that especially if you're a horror fan and if you're setting it in the 70s,
Right.
like, and you're just not investigating these at all. Again, I think this is something where it would have benefited from removing it from a real world context,
Right.
taking the aesthetic, and then just doing whatever you want with casting.
Right. Yeah, no, that's super legit.
But it's almost like if you're not going to investigate these issues, then, like, if you don't want to, then either you have to include more people of color or change up who's playing the parts. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it's like, I don't know, it feels racist in a way to have the, like, person who is Spanish. We don't know. Do we ever hear, like,
So his accent also drops when he is under psychic attack.
oh, shit. I
Also,
didn't
just for
notice
the
that
record,
either.
everyone here is white or white passing. So, like,
Right.
this is our
viewers know.
limited perspective on this.
Right.
But
Yeah. I did not catch that either. Damn. All right. So he doesn't always have the accent.
No.
Huh.
Yeah, so he's also exploiting that culture
Okay.
for
Yes.
his.
Do you feel
That's
that?
true.
I'll just throw an idea out there. Do you feel that the lack of the lack of characters of color in this movie and the like total dismissal of characters of color by Jack serve a purpose to further illustrate what a piece of shit he is?
I think this is a great question, and I don't think so. It feels to me, like I mentioned before, the sort of thing of we're going to do a critique of this, but we're really just going to perpetuate it. So I think there's a lot to be said about your about what you pointed out about his ways of exploiting people. And I think it in some ways it services that, and it's one of these small things that's like, ooh, that's kind of yummy. But on the whole, it didn't make a meal for me.
Got you. Yeah.
The audience was pretty white too. I mean,
I didn't do
I don't know.
as good of a
me
audit
either.
of
It just
the
felt,
audience.
and there were people in costumes with masks. So.
They could have been black.
You don't know.
You don't know.
Something that I think is fun about this movie, to be a little bit more positive about it for a second, something that I think is a little fun about this movie is that it feels like one of those little, it feels like one of those movies that people love to scrutinize every detail of to try to like extricate some meaning, whether it's there or not, to try to find something like conclusive to say about it, like the events that happen. It feels like, I'm not trying to say that it's comparable in quality, but people do this with like, The Thing, John Carpenter's The Thing.
Well, that's a perfect movie.
Right, that's an
It's a
incredible
great
movie. I'm not saying it's as good as that, but I'm saying that it's got that same je ne sais quoi, like that same like idea to it, or the fan treatment of it, or the attention to it is similar in a way. Another movie like that is again another like perfect movie is like Blade Runner. The way that people have like really tried to like latch onto that movie and figure out who is a robot and who is not. You know what I mean? Like, so they're just these movies that for some reason they just like they offer just the right bait for people to really want to like zoom in on its every detail and try to prove conclusively what's going on. And that can be kind of fun.
Yeah.
I think it indicates that the people creating it had fun making it.
Yeah.
Which I think you can see that. And there's a ton of interesting stuff.
Yeah.
And it's a funny thing where I feel like if it wasn't so huge, if it didn't get so much, whoa, you have to see this crazy, like, I heard people raving about this.
Yeah.
If it hadn't been so blown up, I would say, oh, that's pretty cute. But there's like a lot of, like, so they have, I wrote down all of the headlines in the opening montage, and they have two about Son of Sam. And the first one is when he's arrested, and he says, "The devil made me do it," interview with Son of Sam. And then later it has one where it says, "Television made me do it."
Yeah.
Playing on the storyline that we're going through.
Right.
You know?
I do love all those little details.
Isn't that
It's so
cute?
funny though. Like, I really loved this movie though.
There's lots of cute little stuff. I thought it was cute that when they're doing the unpacking of the hypnotism scene, or in the hypnotism scene, you see Lily's laughing the whole time. And she's like, why is Gus acting so silly?
Right.
Yeah.
And on a second rewatch, I said, oh, she doesn't see this.
Right.
Because she wasn't hypnotized.
Oh my God.
Right.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
But then when Jack asks, okay, so who didn't see the worms the first time? And there are a couple of members
There's
of
like
the
a couple,
audience raising
yeah.
hands, and Lily doesn't say anything.
Right.
Cute. Interesting.
Right.
There's like lots of cool
Lots
stuff.
of little stuff, right? That's what I mean. Another aspect of it that I did like some of the like tongue-in-cheek like they're like little jokes about like the heartlessness of TV, but it's still being very much tethered to serving advertisements to consumers. Like they'd be like, you know, like join us as we attempt to commune with the devil, but not before a word from our sponsors. Like, just like that, like crack me up. I love that.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love it. There's a moment when he says it really seriously.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
These
great.
sponsors are very, very important.
Right.
That's why I kind of feel like, I think a lot of times with horror movies, the question for me becomes, what is the context in which I would really enjoy this? Is there a context in which I would really enjoy this? Because there are a lot of movies that I love to watch by myself. And I do not want other people's company. I don't want the company of my wife. There are movies I would just watch with my wife.
Yeah.
And then there are movies that they need to be watched in a group.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
They need to be watched with a drink. They need to be watched chilling.
Yeah.
And I feel like this is one that would be more fun with like 5 to 10 people. That's
in
relaxing.
A movie theater.
In a movie theater, on a projector, you know, like...
That's interesting. I actually didn't feel like it was one of those movies.
Jen, that's because you're a weirdo.
I know.
Remember how much you liked Skinamarink?
I loved it.
I watched Skinamarink a second time because of this podcast. I hated it the first time I saw it. And then I watched it a second time because I was like, well, you guys talked about interesting stuff on the podcast. And I still hated it. But I was doing my nails, so at least I was productive.
I love that our takes on Skinamarink. I think they've come back like in almost every episode.
They have.
It was a good episode. I really liked when the guest, Aaron says, I don't remember specifically what it was. Oh, he says, so what?
Yeah.
As an English teacher, I have to ask, so what? I said, fucking right.
Yeah.
So what?
I write that on my student papers now a lot.
So what?
And they feel really great about it.
I'm sure they do. I'm sure that makes them feel awesome. Let's give a number to this.
I do think we should rate it.
And the number that I'm going to give to it is 6.
Okay.
Yep. No, what you're not catching here, dear audience, is like the open mouth like stare that I'm getting by 10. I give this one a 6. I will say, I do think, because my rating is all about like theme and whether it conveys a message of some sort that I feel is cohesive, I think it does. I think it's about, as I have mentioned, like the ugliness of TV. It's about how the sausage is made and how that's sold to us as comfort. And, you know, there was enough in this for me to like it.
Mm.
Enough little moments. Honestly, some of those funny moments, right, that I've just been noticing. I love the moment where Carr pulls out the fucking check for $1 million as he's about to be incinerated.
Yes!
And I appreciate, from a conceptual level, the idea of taking a demonic possession film, which I think in recent history has been all about, like, randomness. It's all about, like, these innocent people having their lives invaded by the devil and making it a little bit like literary, a little bit Faustian, and a little bit more about these are the consequences for, you know, being willing to sacrifice anything for power or whatever it is that you want. And so I like that about it. That said, we've talked all about the flaws. I agree that it's not a great representation of the 1970s. To be perfectly honest with you, am kind of sick of the, like, the way we have, like, the fetish for 1970s and 1980s. Like, I'm so fucking over it. And I was bored to shit by most of the possession stuff. So yeah, all those things together, 6 for me. Generally favorable, like mildly favorable is what I'll give it.
All right, well, I'm going to give it a 7.5.
Didn't you give Scream a 7.5?
I think I gave it a 7, maybe.
Or not Scream original, but like Scream.
No.
I think Scream 6 you gave like a 7.5?
No. 6, I gave like a 4.
You gave Scream, you gave the original like a 9.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, I've only given 2 a 9. I've only given Skinamarink and stop motion 9s.
You go back and try.
I will go back.
Are you writing these down somewhere?
No.
Where is your data?
We're gonna have to,
Where is your data?
have to pick through the episodes.
We should really go through them.
As I was listening, I was like, I need to be keeping a spreadsheet.
No, I think I gave the other Screams a 4 and a 5. But this one gets a 7.5. I wavered between a 7.5 and an 8. But in the end, I got a 7.5. I like a horror movie that can take place in one room and essentially be a play.
I wrote down stage play.
Right? It's cool. Yeah. I like that.
It would have been cooler as a stage play.
No.
Throwing that out there.
Because I liked the surreal moment. I really like that. When a movie breaks and does something fucking weird, I'm in. I'm in. Give me weird.
Even if the thing that it's doing is like violating its own...
Dumb as shit?
I don't think the found footage for me didn't matter with this. It didn't matter. I think because it had the scenes in black and white of other things, the whole thing wasn't found footage for me. So I didn't care. I don't really care that it was in the 70s. I like the outfits, but honestly, after talking about it with you guys, I do think it would have been better maybe a little later. But yeah, mainly, I really enjoyed that it was kind of about something else other than a possession. Like, I would rewatch this and it would be a comfort movie for me. So, yeah, that's why it's a 7.5. But it did go down from an 8 to a 7.5 because I cannot forgive it for using AI images.
I'm going to give my rating, and then I have a question. Wild card question. But basically, I don't like when any media, especially horror movies, engages uncritically with like conservative religious tropes, especially with real world consequences. So like the dialogue around the Satanic Panic was really rough for me. I give this movie a 3. Especially I think contextually, I love horror movies, and so as a connoisseur of horror movies, it was not good. It didn't do anything, and I think it didn't do anything for me, and in fact, it walked back on things that other movies have done in a great way. I think for somebody that is just watching horror movies, if you are like a late high schooler or like a college student that's just starting to get your toes in, I think it's a good, like, rich base of reference, and it's interesting, and I could see this being a movie that somebody would be like, I watched this and I was obsessed with it when I was a kid, and I still love it even though now I'm older and it's kind of whatever.
And I've sought out all the references, all the origins that it.
Yeah. And so I think it'd be really good for somebody in that situation.
Kind of like gateway horror.
Yeah, gateway horror.
Okay.
But yeah, for me, solid 3.
Solid 3.
Damn. I do have a 4-step plan for improving it, though.
Oh, let's have it. Go ahead.
All right. So 1, remove it from reality. We've talked about this.
Yes.
2, make it gay. Either make him gay or make him a lesbian, turn him into a woman and keep his wife. Fantastic.
Okay.
3, get rid of the behind the scenes in the dream sequence. Sorry, Jen. And 4, pay the artist for the interstitials.
Agreed.
Yeah.
That's all you have to do.
It's true.
You just add a little gay, it's gonna make everything better.
It's
I'm
a
a lesbian, I can say
It's a
that.
4-step plan.
Yeah. Okay, listen, I've been prepared for this since the
Oh,
first
this is
time I
the
watched
hottest?
the movie.
You
Who's the
hop it
hottest?
in?
All right.
I don't have
This is
mine.
my favorite question because this is literally how I evaluate every movie.
I love it.
Am I going first? You guys need to.
I need to. Well, no, you have a great. You have like a. You feel like you have a great answer.
So I feel like you should go last.
I feel like you should go last.
Oh God. All right, so
She's firing guns in the air.
I
know.
know.
that
Let's
noises?
see this. What? Who would I pick? Yeah, who are you gonna pick?
I'm gonna pick Christow's wife.
What?
She was cute.
Because
I
she's
don't even remember
cute
what she
and
looks
she's
like.
ride or fucking
I can't
die.
believe that you missed.
She is like fully in on this con with him. It's a great couple vibe.
That's
I'm
love.
into it. Yeah.
I think to the film's credit, it did pick a bunch of normies,
I know.
Yeah.
which I think is high value.
That's the problem.
High value.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. When they show the magazine clippings and Madeline's got this like
Oh yeah.
retro vibe
Yeah.
to her whole outfit.
Say hello to the goodbye girl.
Exactly. Yeah. So I'm going with I'm gonna get canceled. Pre-cancer I mean, if I haven't been canceled
Is
yet,
this your like 6th or 7th cancellation on this podcast? Yeah, I
they're
think
new
so.
every
I
time.
do like to say every time I hang out with Jen and Tegan, we all come pre-canceled.
Right, that's right. That's right.
Exactly. Yeah, Tegan's constantly trying to cancel me.
Trying?
I know, it's not hard.
It's not hard. All right, so I do want to say that for the record, I did not find Jack very attractive. Although the actor is to me.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
I recently saw a video, David D.
Dustin
I call him David
Oh
D.
yeah.
But I was like, oh, he's got something. He's got a little something going on.
Little something.
Number 1, Christu. Riz. The
Yeah,
Riz.
I mean that's his whole thing. Is
Oh.
Riz. I mean, yeah.
Oh, so handsome. I love Christu. Give him a little like Mark Anthony, Bruno Mars. Yeah, I'm very into that. 2, Lily, after her head explodes into a demon.
What?
Damn.
That was kind of a hot monster.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I mean, her head is basically
Really cool.
orgasming, right?
Like, I'm curious what the reference... Like, that was the one thing where I was like, I don't know where you're pulling the references from for this.
Yeah.
Because it's just kind of cool.
Yeah.
It's a little anime vibes, a
Yeah,
little cartoony.
yeah.
And
You're
again,
attracted to
very
power.
anachronistic.
Yeah.
Yes, Christu and the demon.
I like, though, that it's not Lily. It's the demon.
It's
like,
the demon.
split.
Within Lily.
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
A little flower
Is there a third
situation.
one?
No.
Okay.
Oh.
I thought I'm like probably a bad lesbian if I don't say June, but I just didn't find her that
She's
attractive.
so basic,
She's
though.
really basic. She was made up really nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's tough because she's doing the Vera Farmiga thing, and like
Yes.
you're just not Vera Farmiga.
No.
Please,
Vera
Vera
Farmiga
Farmiga.
is
Do you want to?
so
if you want to
hot.
hang out, if you want to talk on the podcast.
Now, where was the
Are you
dick?
gonna ask where's the dick?
Where was the dick? I was kind of struggling with this, and I feel like it has to be the knife, right?
Yeah,
Oh,
that's
yeah.
that's pretty dickish.
Pretty dickish. What else do we have? We have Haig's cigar.
What about
Oh
the...
yeah.
He's whipping it out.
Well,
He's swinging it
that's
all
and
around.
that's like a classic
And the
like,
fire.
dick symbol.
But
yeah.
the worm.
The worm.
The worms.
During the dream sequence, when the worm is like this like,
God.
giant
Oh.
dick-like puppet thing.
Oh yeah, totally.
Yeah, which, I mean, when you think about the Grove and they have these, another thing they mentioned in the article is like, well, they have a sense of like innuendo when like all sort of like Greek societies and secret societies have this weird like antagonistic homoerotic
Yeah.
sense to them. So that would play into that too, I think. Yeah, that seems very dicky.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go. I like Carr as a in his cigar as a dick thing because like one of the few like he seems so singularly focused on debunking everything that like that's his whole raison d'etre except for one little moment where he's like, hey, next time you're hanging out with your boys in the woods, like, just, give me a call. I'm interested in culty shit and, like, orgies, mostly the orgies.
That's
and I'm
right.
like,
All right,
there's the dick.
And he is a dick.
He is a dick.
He's a dick.
And he's destroying fantasy, which
Yep.
plays into it.
Yep.
I felt really bad because I thought that the actor was so bad for Haig, but I love that character.
Yeah.
Like, I think the writing is interesting, and I think that the role he plays and this journey that he takes is really interesting, going from sort of like coming to smash all of this and then seeing Lily and the way that she is possibly being abused. He immediately stirs up something in him.
Yeah.
And he says, I have to speak out. Like, this is not only bad practice, not only immoral, but it's literally illegal and wrong.
Yeah. And it's so weird. It's so interesting. And maybe I'm just manipulable, but, like, it's so interesting how much you, like, kind of hate him for saying that. But, like, what he's saying is so completely valid.
It's
like,
so valid.
yeah.
Well, and then I think it's also interesting that when he sees this demon, he immediately goes to his core self, which is not a skeptic. It's somebody that believes. And has been waiting to see something true.
Right.
And he, of course, he comes at it with the only thing he has, which is money.
Which is, his $1 million.
But he does believe in that moment.
He
Like,
says
it's
his
like
prayer.
the first thing.
Oh, so Jack says, when he comes out of the dream, he says, "Dreamer, hear, awake."
Yes.
And I kept meaning to Google this.
No, because
Did we talk about this on Reddit?
I did not read anything on
Because I
Reddit.
wrote it down too. Because it's like in the subtitles, it's "Dreamer, hear, awake," and then he also says "Dream, hear, awake," and then at the very, very end, when it says "End transmission" at the bottom,
So it is done.
yeah.
Well, that's the slogan of the, like, cult.
Yep. That's
Oh,
the
shit.
Abraxas cult.
Yeah.
How did I watch this movie?
the Reddit stuff was like a lot of it was about, like, big picture stuff and how the demon's whole goal is to spread itself a la The Ring to the viewers watching, right? And so, like, that's why it didn't necessarily that's why it didn't bother me that it didn't have a card at the end, because, like, I see it very much like the whole documentary, the thing that the relic that we as audience members are watching is actually like a vehicle for the demon to infect us, because if you see the demon, you become a
That's
vehicle
true.
of Abraxas.
And they even say that in the video, like anyone who,
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I forget.
But
where we
wait,
started
Dreamer
there.
here, awake.
I don't know what the Dreamer here awake thing is now.
There was. I feel like you could also. I don't like this reading, but I feel like you could read it that, like, he's in hell and it's hell.
Oh, I don't think so.
No, I don't either.
No.
I don't either. But I feel like.
I just wonder if I wonder if it is something that they made up that we are supposed to assume was a Grove thing of, like, you're coming out of a trance, you're coming out of hypnosis, you say you're dreamer, you're awake, or if it's something that's based in real world ritual and practice.
No, that would make sense though. Like the hypnosis, him thinking like maybe up under his hypnosis, or like, please let me be under hypnosis, so I didn't actually kill her.
Yeah,
So,
or you
like-
have somebody who's, like, just aware of these things and he's in therapy and his therapist gave him this thing to deal with weird dreams.
That's true.
I'm gonna do a real podcasting right now and be like, y'all, if you have a theory about this, email us. Email us your theories on this, because it's clearly very divisive
Yes.
and mysterious.
So many theories.
All right. Well, anyone have any other thoughts you want to express on this one?
No.
Well, wait, let me check
Are
my
you
notes.
sated? You need another?
Let me see. How much more do I need to exercise? I think we hit everything. Yeah, all the other stuff is
You could
really
close
just...
it with one of your notes.
One of my notes? Let's see.
Yeah, we need a soundbite to close out.
Yeah,
So just
yeah.
give us
Jesus,
like a
please.
random note.
How has this gotten so much play in the mainstream?
Oof.
That's rough.
Perfect.
It's rough.
All right. Well, Ten, thank you for joining us on this.
Thank you. This was really
This
fun.
is super fun. And Late Night with the Devil. There you have it, y'all. Poof.